Hello, and welcome to the 43rd video in my Punishing Graven lore series. Today we will cover the 6th chapter of the Floating Record Stories, When Day Breaks. When Gestalt's data wall was broken, massive amounts of information escaped in the brief window it was open. Within that information they found mentions of tantalum copolymers, and messages linking it with Norman's long-abandoned Constantin mine. Now we follow Bridget as she uncovers the secrets hidden beneath the earth, and confronts those shadows hiding in her past. Now without any further delay, Floating Record Chapter 6, When Day Breaks. When breaching Gestalt's data wall, Babylonia managed to intercept a number of other files before the operation was cancelled. Within those files they found mentions of tantalum copolymers, and the possibility of expanding the range of tantalum compatibility, meaning those previously incompatible could gain that affinity. Their target is one of Norman's greatest losses, the Constantin tantalum mine. Their mission is to infiltrate the mine and gather as much of the experimental data as possible. On top of this, tantalum is a critical component in the creation of constructs. Babylonia's supply is limited, and no major mineral deposits have been found since the mine's closure. Instead of risking resources searching for another suitable location, they have decided to reclaim the mine. To aid in this goal, Victoria offers all the information Norman has on the mine's layout and condition. Long ago, Norman invested in the mine's research, but due to a lack of progress, funding dried up. To negotiate a new deal, Skyche, the Norman family's butler, and the one most responsible for raising Victoria, was sent on the family's behalf. During his investigation, the mine collapsed, presumably killing him, and Victoria's only request is to bring back his remains. The next day, Lucy and Commandant join the support force to provide combat assistance. Additionally, Norman has sent their own group of researchers, headed by a woman named Angie, and their security advisor Trojan. As they near the mining town, the others are surprised to find Bridget knows her way around quite well, and she admits that this town was once her old home. Her parents were stationed here as rescue workers to save miners caught in cave-ins, and even after she had left, she returned for various missions over the years. Long ago, when the wounds of the Constantin mining disaster were still fresh, Bridget spent her time working, and when she wasn't working, she was organizing protests against the Norman Mining Corporation. In the most recent of these cave-ins, dozens of miners vanished, and not a single rescue worker made it back alive. Bridget's parents were skilled rescuers, who volunteered for the job after hearing a personal friend was involved. For veterans like themselves, a collapse of this scale was routine. She knows something foul happened within that mine, but with Norman's constant deflection, the families of the victims have gotten neither an explanation nor closure. Soon after that day, Babylonia came screening for those with tantalum compatibility, and thinking their resources and authority would help her get to the truth, Bridget volunteered. After that, she became a construct, passed basic training, and was assigned to the support force, where she made her first friend, a somewhat unremarkable construct named Roland. On the other side of Babylonia, Trojan, the support force's new training instructor, is reviewing this year's batch of recruits. Over the course of her training, Bridget continues to ignore just about every regulation outlined in the support force's training manual, yet her results remain exceptional, putting Trojan in quite a tough spot as the one enforcing those regulations. After nearly a year, Bridget not only managed to keep her scores perfect, but pushed Roland to pass the task force exam, allowing her to join the frontline squads. To celebrate, Roland brought 3 movie tickets to thank the 2 people who allowed her to make it this far. One for her, Bridget, and surprisingly their instructor Trojan. Together, she and Bridget track Trojan down to one of the back rooms, and after presenting her with a ticket, the 2 are firmly denied, as not only does she not care, but is actively waiting on instructions from Corono. After they leave, an agent arrives to give Trojan the details on her latest mission, and she's told her next steps will be delivered to tonight's movie premiere. After taking the time to complain and calm down, with an emotion somewhere between anger, shame, and embarrassment, she dials Bridget's number. That night, the 3 meet up to enjoy the movie, and sometime during the showing, Trojan receives her instructions. Some time after that, the support force got a mission to investigate the Constantin mine, responding to claims that a punishing outbreak shut down many of the underground facilities. After arriving on the surface, they split up and enter the mine, and Bridget's group finds bloodstains consistent with conventional weapons. She finds that something is off. This mine was supposedly abandoned, yet there are fresh bloodstains and a noticeable lack of corrupted signals. It is highly likely whatever caused this incident is related to the previous cave-ins and the death of her parents. 30 minutes into their search, the safety rope linking the team members is cut, and Trojan has gone missing. Not wanting to leave Trojan alone, Bridget convinces her squad leader to allow her and Roland to go back and mount a rescue. Meanwhile, Trojan is making her way through the mine with expert efficiency. Stepping over the bodies of dead researchers, she soon finds an access panel and enters one of the sealed-off labs. Hiding in that lab is one of her former associates, a researcher named Hyde, the final survivor of Corono's attack on the mine, a mistake she plans to correct right now, putting a bullet in Hyde's shoulder. She takes aim again, intending to put him down, when Bridget and Roland manage to catch her trail. Now Trojan finds herself on the wrong end of a gun, as Bridget demands her surrender. At this point, her mission could not be any more of a failure. Hyde is alive, and she's been exposed. She could set off the explosives below the lab, taking everyone with her, and technically completing the job. But what good is a job's completion if she's too dead to enjoy her pay? So she surrenders her weapon to Roland. As the four make their way through the mine, Corono's agents are continuously trying to assassinate Hyde. He presented himself as an average Norman researcher, but Bridget finds this level of force far too disproportionate. Earlier, he mentioned being stationed here for a number of years, so she asks about the various cave-ins that took place. While some were well and truly accidents, others were manufactured to dispose of certain unforeseen circumstances. As for the rescuers, many were mildly infected with the punishing, and instead of sending them to the surface, the researchers sent them to the lower levels of the mine for treatment. An obvious, bold-faced lie. But for Bridget, who went so long without hearing anything, she can't help but latch on to that lie. Having the choice between escaping to the surface or reuniting with the rest of the squad, they choose the latter and make their way deeper into the mine. Soon they come across a pit and find the connecting tunnel has been destroyed by the assassins. Having found an emergency bridge, they begin crossing, and all seems well until a bomb flies out from the shadows, exploding between Hyde and Trojan. When the dust clears, all that remains of the bridge is a beam holding a single cable. On one side is Trojan, on the other Hyde. By all standards, only one of them can be saved, but Bridget has never been one for standards. She grapples onto the beam, planning to tie a rope to Hyde, and use their combined weight as leverage to pull up Trojan. Bridget may actually manage this save, but for both professional and personal reasons, Trojan cannot allow Hyde to live, and if that goal costs her life, so be it. She lets go of the cable and shoots Hyde dead as she falls into the cavern below. Bridget can't understand these actions, but as a member of the support force, her job is to save whoever she can, regardless of her personal feelings. She dies after Trojan, tackling her out of the air, as the two crash into a nearby platform. When she came to, she was already back with the support force. They had also been attacked by those assassins, and even detected life signs deeper within the mine. However, when they closed in, the tunnel suddenly collapsed, and the viral concentration spiked, bringing with it Corrupted. After that day, she tried to gather all the information she could on what happened, but that information was just as useless. Norman researchers conducted illegal experiments, leading to the infection of constructs and staff. That was all they bothered to write in the official report. After that, she learned Trojan suffered from a severe mind injury, resulting in loss of memory, and Roland was quietly transferred to the task force. After working her way to captain of the support force, she tried to reopen the investigation, only to be shut down at every turn. Now, after so many setbacks, she's returned to this place once again. They begin their investigation and find bodies dragged near the entrance, serving as some type of warning. The deeper they go into the mine, the more their communications die out. And on top of that, Anji and her assistant have very concerning demeanors. They have been anxious, but with a distinct lack of fear, as if they are fully aware of what's happening. Lucia suggests they assign someone to monitor the pair, just as a precaution, to catch any potential issues before they arise. They begin making emergency repairs to stabilize the mine, when another sudden cave-in halts their efforts. Bridget informs the group that their way back has been blocked. From now on, they will have to camp out until they are rescued, or manage to free themselves. Meanwhile, on Babylonia, they have learned of the investigation team's situation. Karenina and Teddy have already made their request to initiate a rescue. This is the third attempt to reclaim the mine, and it involves the Norman Mining Corporation, so something going wrong is almost a given. Against his better judgment, Wells gives Karenina unofficial approval to mount a rescue, and Teddy is one step ahead, already having prepped a transport. In the mine, Bridget pulls Trojan aside for a conversation and hands her a drink. She wants to know if Trojan truly doesn't remember the history between them. When looking at Bridget, the faintest hint appears in her mind, but it's gone just as fast. In appreciation for the drink, Trojan gives her 1 drink's worth of information. Norman did ask her to assist Anji in her mission and report back any relevant information, although this was more of a request than an order. Bridget tries to pry further, but if she wants more, she'll have to confront Anji directly. After that conversation, another 3 days had passed, with no luck escaping the mine. Suddenly, a number of constructs rushed to Bridget's side with an update. Anji has gone missing. Bridget assigned her second-in-command, Scylla, to keep eyes on them, and there's no way 2 humans managed to overpower a construct, so something must have went wrong. When searching the area, they find traces of vital fluid and drag marks on the ground. Bridget has Lucia, Commandant, and Trojan join her in the search for Scylla and the missing researchers, as from the rate of vital fluid leakage on the ground, she won't last much longer. In another part of the mine, Anji walks alongside 2 Chrono soldiers, carrying her wounded assistant. She tries to leverage her access to the labs for her assistant's treatment, and the soldiers make a show of their weapons, informing her that it is not her who holds the power here, and she can't help but regret the choices that led to her current situation. She was one of Norman's rising stars in the research department, and her professor, one of Chrono's spies, saw the potential she had to be useful and benefit the organization. He introduced her to Chrono's higher-ups, and with their authority they secured the latest in experimental technology and provided her with no shortage of test subjects. One day, her professor asked her to retrieve his research data from the mine, and when she tried to refuse, he reminded her of her involvement with Chrono, and that it would be no trouble to have her status as an affiliate leaked. The next time the soldiers speak, it snaps her out of her memory, and they wonder how long she plans to drag a corpse, forcing her to acknowledge the fact her assistant has long since died. She asks to do a burial, but that would take time they don't have, so they throw the man's body off the ledge. They march her forward at gunpoint until they arrive at a hidden laboratory, and with the access card she received from her professor, the panel lights up. Meanwhile, Bridget's group has found more bloodstains and have decided to press on. Regardless of their opinions on Anji, she is a Norman employee, and they can't handle the backlash of her dying while under the military's protection. Suddenly, they hear a pair of heavy metal doors echoing throughout the tunnels, and it's coming from near the top of the mine. From the outside, the mine looks quite unremarkable, but underground its structure was like that of an inverted tower, with the top being the part deepest in the earth, allowing for easy access to materials. The further they go, the more the trails of blood and vital fluid mix together, until Bridget spots Scylla, motionless at the end of the tunnel. At the sight of her, pain shoots through Bridget's mind. This mine is already a sensitive spot for her, and now she's losing her valued squad members one after the other. At this point, she needs to find out what happened in this mine, not only for herself, but for those trapped as well. They explore the lower sections of the mine and find the remains of dozens of constructs, but none of them are infected by the virus. On top of that, Bridget finds an escape map, seemingly scribbled by a young child. They enter the various operating rooms and find them in perfect condition, a stark contrast to the claim the mines were abandoned. All of this information points to the fact the mines were never abandoned. The cave-ins were intentional and were used to cover up evidence of illegal human experimentation. On the way back to camp, they find Anji, who managed to escape the Chrono guards by secretly activating one of the lab security systems. At the same time, Trojan realizes it's not just Bridget who feels the need to uncover the secrets of the mine, but her as well. Before the mission, Trojan met with Leonardo, who admitted that Norman has no concrete records pertaining to her recruitment or why she was scouted in the first place. The only relevant information left was that she was previously employed by Norman and was stationed at the mine. As one who spent so long in the shadows, she knows any background that concise is sure to be fake. When they arrive back at the camp, Bridget tries to convince Anji to come clean about what she knows, and having no luck, she allows Trojan to take over the interrogation, since with them both being from Norman, Bridget assumes she will have an easier time. Ever since she entered the mine, she knows she hasn't been acting like herself. This town was her old home, and the more she digs, the more she loses. First her parents, then her mentor, and now her squad. The further she goes, the more she wonders if she's doing the right thing. Soon after that, Trojan comes out of the tent with Anji. Kurono wanted her to retrieve the information on the copolymers from the lab, and the soldiers were sent to eliminate her when the job was done. And ever since Babylonia outlawed human testing, Kurono didn't want to run the risk of being caught. Anji transfers all the files she found to Bridget, and she finds the information nothing less than shocking. Bridget learns that Trojan was originally one of the test subjects in the mine, where they experimented on her with copolymers to boost her compatibility, and that the lead researcher was none other than Hyde. After their most recent mission assignment, Trojan takes Commandant aside for a word. Ever since Anji shared her information with Bridget, the two have been unusually distant. Whether it was compassion for a friend or concern for a threat, Bridget was always around, yet lately she's been avoidant. Trojan herself has also been feeling off. She wants to know why she feels the way she does towards both the mine and Bridget, but no matter how hard she searches for those answers, they don't exist within her own memory. In her mind, she's a ticking bomb, and she just wants a safety pin, something to keep her in check and provide a sense of comfort. Suddenly, those at the camp erupt in celebration. They manage to establish a communication line by hooking up a modified radio to the power lines. The only issue being, according to Bridget, there shouldn't be any working power, and that all but confirms they aren't the only ones down here. They get in contact with Wells, who informs them of Karenina's plan to get them to safety, but their information is just too incomplete, and with that a third party enters the call. Kurono are the ones who truly built and operated within this mine, and as such they have far more comprehensive information on the mine structure, but in exchange they want the data left behind. While Bridget couldn't care less about the data, the more concerning statement is that he suggested they would lose people while escaping. He tries to leverage Norman's needs to bully them into a deal when Victoria joins the call, giving Norman's vote to whatever Commandant decides is necessary, as Norman's new priority is the preservation of human life. With negotiations having broken down, the call is ended, and they update everyone else on the status of their rescue. And hearing that Kurono has written her off, Anji gives Bridget the access card to the lab. As they prepare to attempt another escape, Lucia arrives with more news. While checking the radar, they found life signals deep within the mine. Bridget and Commandant head towards the signals when they come across a diary from one of the miners, and it mentions him having been rescued by Bridget's parents. Past that is an access panel, and she inserts the ID she got from Anji. They find themselves in a fully lit, well-maintained lab, as cameras begin tracking their every move. Together they destroy the cameras, copy the data from the terminal, and leave the lab. Commandant finds Bridget's skills on the level of a task force member, and wonders why it is she picked the support force. She doesn't think there's anything wrong with the task force, she just finds it's not the best place for her. The task force does so much heavy lifting on the front lines, but someone has to be there to lift them up as well. So many people have tried to tell her where she should have gone in life, whether it was accepting Norman's deal and living safe within the conservation area, or joining the task force to earn merit and rise through the ranks. But not once did she ever question her path, and it seems she chose right. Ever since taking command of the support force, the number of squads saved has gone up dramatically, with support force missions completed rising alongside it. Her only regret is not being able to sense Trojan's pain beforehand. If she had, there might have been an opportunity to help her friends sooner, but both of them are still alive now, so those past wrongs can still be righted. They arrive at the spot Karenina marked on the map and designate people to begin removing debris. They know they aren't alone in the mine, and are worried the noise from the drilling will attract corrupted to their location, so Bridget volunteers to stay back while Lucia and Commandant take point. They will create small transport channels to send in materials to reinforce the mine, and when it is stable, follow it up with the main rescue drill. As everyone packs up their tents, Anji apologizes to Bridget, admitting that she has one piece of information she kept secret. She hands over a map of the mine, even more detailed than what Norman had, and on the bottom floor is a hidden monitoring room. Anji has always known that scientific progress comes at the cost of lives, but having to face that truth so directly, and having experienced the fear of death personally, she now knows how wrong she was to be part of Kurono's scheme. It was easy to abandon others until she learned what it meant to be the one abandoned, and she promises if she makes it out alive to resign from Norman's research division, as no breakthrough is worth sacrificing innocent lives. In the end, this is Bridget's second time within the mine, yet her parents' fates still remain a mystery. But as the one responsible for the lives of these people now, she smiles knowing the end is near. Their plan is put into motion. Lucia's team will lead non-combatants to the designated location, while Bridget holds off the corrupted following their trail. During the fighting, she is cornered, and before she's overrun, Trojan arrives to save her life. Trojan's frame is badly damaged, as while on her way here, she encountered something so menacing it can hardly be called a person. The two have ended up on the lowest level of the mine, and it's likely the main control room will have an emergency elevator, one they can use to escape both the mine and the thing now chasing them. As they near the monitoring room, the ground around them begins to quake, and Trojan grabs Bridget, pulling her out of the path of a massive fist. A grotesque mechanical monster continues to assault the two, hunting them down with frightening agility. Trojan finds a hidden door and shoves Bridget in before she can react. Bridget screams in protest as the muffled sounds of fighting sound through the walls. Trojan has somehow tampered with the panel, and the access card no longer works, so Bridget heads towards the monitoring room, hoping to find a way back to the fight. On the other side of the wall, Trojan admits that she's made quite the uncharacteristic move, but as two failures born within the mine, they can head towards their deaths together. Despite her agility, this construct is just far too massive for her to defeat. Having been knocked into a corner, now bleeding and motionless, she gets a sudden flash in her mind, remembering that this construct bears a striking resemblance to Skyche, the Norman family's trusted butler. Having made it to the monitoring room, she searches for anything to help her open the doors, and finds a number of Skyche's audio logs. When he was sent here to negotiate, he and many others were captured and forced to take medicines, which were made to boost their copolymer adaptability. After that, he witnessed dozens of failed experiments, and when the consequences got too far out of Chrono's hands, they blew up the mine, writing it off as a minor accident. After that, Norman hired rescue workers, but he never expected those two to come to his rescue, Zoe and Marion, Bridget's parents. Meanwhile, Kamena's group has reached the surface, and the first thing he asks is for someone to get in touch with Bridget. As they lead the way to the temporary camp, they run into one of Norman's executives, along with Professor Alvis, the one who put Anji up to this mission. The executive's request is simple, to preserve as much of the mine's infrastructure as possible. Alvis, however, is demanding the return of Anji and the research data. Knowing his request isn't on behalf of Norman, he is denied, and Teddy exposes his connections to Kurono. Meanwhile, Bridget tries calling for help, but Skyche has cut off all communications from within the mine, all to keep himself from leaking information on the experiments, hoping to keep that information from harming the Norman family's reputation. After hearing this, she rushes back to Trojan's position, and thanks to the damage he inflicted on the door, Bridget can now force her way through. When they meet face to face, he finds Bridget looks just like her mother, and in a moment of clarity remembers those happier times. He was lifelong friends with Zoe and Marion, and was even present for Bridget's birth. The next time they met was in the depths of the mine, where the two saved Skyche, who had been imprisoned by Kurono. The pain of these memories leaves him reeling, giving Bridget enough time to save Trojan. He tells her to take Trojan and leave, to escape before he loses himself once again, and she takes Trojan to one of the paths made by the engineers. She heard Skyche say he was going to destroy Kurono's data to prevent it from harming Norman, and as the only thing that can prove Kurono's illegal experiments, she can't allow that to happen. She leaves markers to guide the others to Trojan's position, and heads back into the mine. She makes her way back down to the monitoring room, and begins downloading everything she can get her hands on. She comes to a sudden halt as images of her parents flash on screen, and next to it is a file, labeled Disposal Instructions. When she clicks the file, the screens go dark, and are soon replaced with images of Skyche. She's been found.
That the bulk and progress of our times. Once you man your coming in for life and breathe. Because there are always people who that the same tragedy keeps occurring. You can't change it. beyond my expectations. But still far from enough. Such feeble strength. How can it break the shackles?
You are just like them, friend.
You did well. You have already proven your resolution surpasses mine. Go take what you desire. Don't look back. And don't show your mercy. Taking up the burden of that duty is the right of the living's glory. Let us inspire moments with your advance.
Skyche crashes to the ground, and Bridget makes her way to his side. He tried to make everything better by sweeping those past evils under the rug, but the only way for situations to get better is to face them head on. While he wants to blame it on the fractured state of his mind, the truth is if he hadn't been so obsessed with the Norman family, he wouldn't have turned into what he is today. After defeating Skyche, she gathered the rest of the data, met up with the rescue squad, and escaped the mine. Everyone listening to her story is shocked to hear such an abrupt ending, but this isn't some movie. There are no surprise twists. Meanwhile, Trojan has been examined by the Science Council, who have determined whatever made her a successful case of copolymer usage is unique to her and cannot be replicated. As for the data Bridget brought back, Asimov has determined that it was based on a false premise and was flawed from the start. Therefore, the data holds no scientific value and only serves as evidence of more legal experimentation. Later that night, Victoria receives a report on everything that happened within the mine. It seems everything went according to plan. Norman regained control of the mine, and Corono secured part of their experimental data, as well as new criminal charges. Victoria raises her glass for a toast. Looking at the outcome of her deal with Corono, this can only be called a success. Alright, and that wraps up When Day Breaks. So I'm not gonna lie, I did hear, through the grapevine that this is generally considered the weakest of the floating records, and, I can definitely see why. I can definitely understand that sentiment. Me personally, I do like stories that don't focus on, the main plot. I know it's kind of weird and, backwards, not liking stories that just focus on random stuff, but for me it shows that there's more happening in the world than just the main story, because there's a bunch of downtime in between all these huge world-ending events, And I just like seeing that, there's stuff happening in the middle there, and they do other things, right? Like, yes, Grey Raven fights, Ascendants and interdimensional space gods and the Tower and the Virus and rah, but they still do patrols and just walk around. So I like to see stuff like that. Same reason I like, Cinder Burns and 22 and 25. But, even with my bias, it for sure is the weakest of the floating records so far. And from what I've heard of the other floating records, it will continue to be down there. Which, kind of a shame, because Bridget is super hot. It's a shame her chapter is also not hot. Truth is, I could probably put all of my thoughts on the chapter here, but I told myself I would keep these and the discussions separate. So that's what I'm gonna do, even though it's gonna be like 5 minutes max. Whatever, it's fine. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you all in the next video, where we cover Chapter 7 of the Floating Record Stories, Soaring Beyond.